Nina madam, we can start now.
Principal Sir, Liji ma'am, Kalpana, Richa, can we all start? Are we all good to go?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Neena Sharma. Welcome to the national webinar on LGBTQ rights and awareness, the college as an ally, organized by the ICC of Bansangha's SM Shetty College of Science, Commerce and Management Studies, Powai, in collaboration with the IQAC of the college and BMM BAMMC department. Bansangha's SM Shetty College of Science, Commerce and Management Studies was established in the year 2008 by Bansangha Mumbai and is managed by the Powai Education Committee. The college is permanently affiliated to the University of Mumbai and we are an ISO 9001 2015 certified institution. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for joining us. May I welcome to our midst our resource person for the day, Richa Vashisht, our principal, Dr. Sridhara Shetty, vice principal and IQAC coordinator, Dr. Liji Santosh, vice principal, Professor Sandesha Shetty, my colleagues, all the participants and all students who have joined us here today. Before we start today's webinar, may I request all of you to rise for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you, everyone. May I now request Dr. Liji Santosh, Vice Principal and IQAC Coordinator, to give a brief introduction about today's session. Liji ma'am.
Good afternoon to our respected Principal, Dr. Sridhar Shetty, our resource person of the day, Richa Vashisht, our Vice Principal, Mr. Sandesh Shetty, BMM Coordinator, Kalpana Rai Menon, ICC Presiding Officer of the college, Ms. Neena Sharma, members of ICC, my colleagues, students and teachers across India who joined us for the day. LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender and queer, a community who is highly talented, needs their own space in this universe. Identifying them and providing what they deserve as a college is our top topic for the day. It is important for any organization to understand the different labels used within the LGBTQ communities. There are many stigmas still associated with LGBTQ individuals. My own experience with researching with them is they are not accepted. And that is a major stigma which the society, from the society they see that. And much of this is due to the lack of understanding that breeds prejudice and discrimination. As an organization without knowledge, it will struggle to fulfill the understand of the range of identities in these communities, putting them at disadvantage when it comes to supporting students as allies. Here, training the members of the organizations come into the light. So what is expected from a campus as an ally is to provide training to its members on the rights of LGBTQ community as a whole. As teachers, we can create safety by having clear expectation from the classroom behavior, make it abundantly clear that bullying or harassment of any kind will not be tolerated. Encourage thoughtful, respectful discourse in the class. If any homophobic or transphobic language is used by a student, don't ignore it. Take them into task. This is what as teachers, we can do that because currently we need this. As students, they can provide invaluable support system for LGBTQ students, including them to the main course. Although the government has supported Samagra Vidya, that is, education for all. So that it's not just enough, but making it into execution in the classrooms is very important. Without the support of teachers and students, it is not possible. Teachers can empower their students by serving as mentors and advisors too. Our college has already got a clubs for gender sensitization, and also it fulfills all the needs as per the MHRD and the university regulations. But as an attempt to make this movement for LGBTQ friendly campus, we would like to hear more from our resource person of the day. And also, what I would like to say is, what is more needed is a changing mindset of the people, which is a difficult task. At the same time, I would say, if you respect the Almighty and His creations in this world, respect LGBTQ community because they are also the creation of the world. Then, what I would like to end this note is respect the community as they are. They are a human resource to be identified and a talent to be tapped. With this note, I welcome all the dignitaries to this virtual gathering. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. May I now request our principal, Dr. Sridhara Shetty, to deliver the welcome address.
Good afternoon, everybody. Respected resource person of today's beautiful program, Richa Vashist, Dr. Lijji Santosh, and Mr. Sandesh Shetty, the vice principals of the college. Kalpana Roy Menon, the HOD of BMM department. Neena Sharma, the chairperson of ICC, the technical team, the teachers, and respected participants across India. This is our 33rd webinar. In fact, we have explored different areas. And this one is quite special. And I appreciate the ICC chairperson of the college, Neena Sharma, and your team for choosing this area. As my task was made quite simple by our vice principal, Dr. Lijji Santosh. She spoke very meaningfully about the need, importance, and significance of this. For the information of our resource person, Richa Vashist, since 10 or 12 years, I'm always saying ours is the most secular institution. And there should be a level playing field for all students. Now, as far as LGBTQ is concerned, they are also human beings. And in fact, they are very close to our heart. They should not be annoyed. Recently, I think 2 years ago, Supreme Court has gave the verdict that gay, this, all those things is okay, because it was done by the Supreme Court only after questioning it. How can they be different from the rest of the population? So in this context, this is quite relevant, this is quite meaningful, and Richa Vashist is going to deliver a speech on that. And after listening to, I think our mindset will totally change. And we will take this mindset to our classes, ultimately will percolate down in our campus. And I will assure you that. And I take this opportunity for appreciating the ICC headed by Neena Sharma and the BMM department for holding a conference of this nature. I extend a cordial welcome to Richa Vashisht, to Vice Principals Dr. Liji Santosh and Mr. Sandesh Shetty, Kalpana Rai Menon, Neena Sharma, your team, and the technical team, which is very important, working behind the curtain, Dr. Tushar Samra and your team, and finally, to all the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. May I now request HOD BMM BAMC, Mr. Kalpana Rai Menon, to introduce our guest to all the participants.
Very good morning to one and all present here. And it's nice to see Richa back here. She had come and taken a session for our BMM department, and I'm very happy to present her profile to the gathering. This young mental health professional has achieved so many things that the CV goes in pages. I will just read out some of the things that we can accommodate here right now. So Richa Vashisht has done her master's in clinical psychology from SNDT College. She has undertaken courses in cognitive behavioral therapy, sexual and mental health institute by Anjali Mehta Health Organization. She has done capacity building workshop on operational research, ethics and data analysis. She has conducted many training programs and workshops. A few of them are mental health, O Womania under Keshav Suri Foundation, ACG Group, UN Globe. She has taken mental health workshop for IIT Bombay, for Tata Institute of Social Sciences. She has also been a part of many international conferences. A few of them are International Conference on Population Development at Nairobi. She's been a delegate at Good Pitch, Indonesia, attended on how social justice films can create impact by connecting it with new allies. She's been a part of International AIDS Conference at Amsterdam. She's been with training and capacity building workshop by MTV Staying Alive Foundation, South Africa. And she's also attended a session in training package for healthcare providers by UNDP Bangkok. Apart from this, currently Richa is associated with One Future Collective as a facilitator for Queer Justice Healing Circle. She's been a mental health consultant for Insider, with Connect, and with Love Matters India. She has also worked with Barefoot College in Uttar Pradesh. She has given training, she's worked with Central Bank of India and has been a part of the Humsafar Trust Mumbai as a clinic and counseling head, providing mental health counseling to the staff, LGBT individuals and their families, and the list goes on. She has also done event management and community outreach programs with Umang as a core member, organizing events in support of lesbian, bisexual women and trans persons. She's organized events for Yaria, with Likho and Kashish Queer Film Festival. She has also has a list of published works under her. With Sage Publications, she has ebook on mental health and many more. So I will stop here now, and I welcome you once again for this workshop, and thank you so much for joining us. Back to you, Neena. Can you hear me?
Neena madam has some network issue with her.
Okay. So I guess we'll invite Richa ma'am to take over and begin with her session.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot. That is the longest introduction I think I've ever had. And I think it's been a while since I have read all of those things from my own CV. It just sounds like a lot. It isn't a lot, to be honest. But yes, thanks a lot, Kalpana. I'm so happy to be back here again. I think I was I had come to the college last year in January, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. For a
Right?
VMM event, yeah.
Yeah. And yes, super excited to be doing this. My name is Richa Vashisht. My pronouns are she and her. Um, I have been practicing for almost 6 years right now, so I'm just a very young professional, and I like that about myself as of now. Um, I think there were some polls that needed to be filled before we begin today's session. Um,
Mithilesh sir, can we have that poll right now?
so I think the poll is there right in front of you. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So if everybody can just fill the first question that's put in front of you.
All the participants are requested to fill that.
So we have around 74% people who fill the poll. I think the poll would be right in front of you. There's this poll section where you can go and click on either of the answers.
We can request all the participants to vote before the time ends. Only about 28% of people have voted.
No, 80%
No,
people have
it's
voted.
80%, yeah. Actually, we can take the answer from here, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Great.
can stop the poll
Great.
for now and discuss
I'm
it.
just going to take a photo of the poll in case I forget. Great. But this is good. It's good to see that we have about 47. Okay, wait. I'm just going to take a photo now that we have it. Yes. So the question was, is sex and gender the same? And we have about 34% people saying that yes, sex and gender is the same. Around 47% people saying no, and 19% that I don't know. Okay, awesome. Um, Now, before we go ahead, I'm just going to give about one or two disclaimers. Instead of using the word LGBTQ, I will use the word queer because it's faster to say it. And once I get into this conversation, it's faster to say queer. So it's just a disclaimer. Of course, I am being representative of all possible identities, whether it's lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, non-binary, all the different identities. Second thing is, I'm just going to give a trigger warning. So if any conversation gets uncomfortable for you, you can absolutely leave the room for a bit, drink some water, breathe, and come back. It's not a compulsion that you have to sit through the entire thing, even if it's making you uncomfortable. Um, I will keep taking pauses in between to take questions. If you have questions, you can put those questions in the chat box. If you have something you'd like to share, because I'm always comfortable and in for an interactive discussion. So if at all you have anything you'd like to share You can unmute yourself, you can raise your hand. If somebody could just let me know, because sometimes when I'm trying to look at the presentation, I might miss looking at the chat. So just if somebody can just let me know if in case. Yeah. Thank you. Great. So I think listening to all the introductions and all the things that people have said till now, I think it's interesting to know that we have reached a point where colleges want to have an open conversation about queer identities in India, especially when we know that there is so much of stigma, there is so much of discrimination that actually happens in the country. So I'm quickly just going to, yes, hold on. So I'm going to show a nice, funny video to you all. Let's have a look at this video before we start today's presentation. So if everybody can close their videos, it will work out better.
Excuse me,
Can we all
Abhi
hear?
sent us here for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
gender identity class. This is boy and I'm girl.
Hi, I'm Angel and I'm gender fluid. Sometimes I feel like a boy, sometimes like a girl, sometimes like both, and sometimes like neither. That is my gender identity. It could be different from my gender expression and my biological sex. You guys follow?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
No.
Wait. If it hangs between your legs, it's your sex. It physically manifests, it's your sex. But society thinks in twos, doesn't mean that it is true. Gender identity is what's inside of you. If you wanna be a boy or a girl, or you want your special fashion to unfurl, you get to choose how you express and the way you wanna dress. You get to choose how you would like to be addressed.
Okay, so how would you like to be addressed?
Like you like to be addressed as he or him, and you like to be addressed as she or her. I like to be addressed as they or them.
Wait, isn't that plural?
If a friend is bringing someone and you don't know their gender, wouldn't you say, I hope they like pizza?
Oh, yeah.
So should I introduce you as this is Angel? They are tonight's host.
There you go. You got it.
But what if someone makes a mistake and only calls you she?
Oh, God. Every time I'm misgendered, it's conditioning. I try to remember, but after the 100th time in a day, it gets difficult. I'm a they, like you're a she and you're a he.
No, I'm a she and he's a he.
Exactly. And now there's someone else I want you to meet.
I'm Mehak. I'm a trans woman and my pronouns are she, her. When I was a child, they said I was boy, but inside I was a girl, crashing a bride from Troy. Uncomfortable in my skin, no one to share this pain. Dysphoria is the exact opposite of joy.
And what about work?
Us transgender folks don't get employed. Our bank accounts are a gaping void. We move courts for basic rights.
But nobody in India has toilets.
That's not the point. Every day is a brand new fight.
Oh my God, that's so terrible.
Our families don't understand. Mine took me to a strange god man. Cis people think that we're a trend. Haters will wait for our life to end.
That's horrible. But what can we do? How can we help?
When someone doesn't conform to what's in your head is the norm, just give them the space to be whoever they want to be.
Okay, I will, but I don't get all of it. It's so confusing.
You don't have to get it. You just have to respect it.
Just respect it. That makes sense.
So we just have to be decent human beings?
Yes.
We can try to do that.
Just give everyone the space to be whoever they want to be.
Hi guys, my name is Durga Gowde. I'm a gender fluid person.
Hi everyone, my name is Sushant Divgekar.
Hi, this is Doyle.
And my pronouns are they, them and their.
My pronouns are he and him.
My pronouns are she, her and hers.
We can all exist together.
Because this world is a huge space and there's space for all of us. We all can exist together.
So you don't have to get it. All you need to do is respect it.
You might not get us, but you can respect us.
You just remember, you don't have to get it. You just have to respect it. Thank you.
Awesome. So basically, we did a poll. I'm just going to quickly have a look at the chat. Okay, there's nothing that I need to see from here. So when we looked at the poll, we had Himandra has raised their hand. Would they like to speak?
Ma'am, we can take the question answers towards the end.
Okay, all right. Cool. So when we asked this question, whether sex and gender is the same, and you just wanted to show this video for us to understand that very quickly, I'll just rush through what I would call the basics, that sex is the biological component of the body. So if you have pen and papers, you can write those down. So sex is basically what we biologically claim, right? So when a child is born, the doctor looks at the child's genitals and would say ki, ladka paida hua hai, ladki paida hui hai. So that is when we understand that this is the sex of a particular person. So they are usually assigned male at birth or they're assigned female at birth. Now, most people get confused, and in fact, a lot of admission forms at colleges would have gender written or sex written, because mostly we're not clear the difference between sex and gender. I don't know, what do your admission forms look like, but that's something that I would come to a little later. And when we talk about gender is basically it's a social construct. It's about how the society looks at how a person is supposed to be, right? So when we are talking about sex, it's male, female, and also intersex. Intersex is another sex that we usually don't talk about. I'm not going to get into details because that's another session altogether. But when we talk about gender and gender identities, it is about how the society. So, for example, I was born female at birth. Now, once I grow up, the society will expect me to be a certain way. I should have long hair. I should put nail polish, lipstick. I should wear salwar kameez. Just some random examples for us to actually understand what the society expects of me. I'm just going to quickly get my presentation out. Give me a moment.
सुन लिया रोजाना मेरी तो है दास्तान नहीं पुरज़े पुराने हैं शौक है
What we're going to quickly learn about is how to be an ally, how to be helpful to others, especially as an educational institution. Something that we will talk about is a little bit of discipline, a little bit of legislative, and a little bit of allyship. The four topics that we're going to run through today is first of all society's role that affects LGBT individuals. Then we will talk about The video is on, so you cannot hear me. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now
I
it's done.
didn't realize that was happening. Could you not hear anything at all? Should I start from the beginning?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. So I was saying that today's topic is what we're going to talk about is how to be an LGBTQ ally. So we're going to talk a little bit on mental health, LGBTQ, and allyship. What does it mean to be an ally? Okay, so we hear this word that we should be allies, we should be inclusive. But what does it mean to be an ally? So when we use the word ally, what we're really trying to say is that um, we want to live in an inclusive world where it doesn't matter what people's sexual orientation is, what people's gender identity is, because at the end of it, we're all human beings, right? So, for example, um, when in conversation, and we tend to do this very often, where we'll be like, LGBT people experience this, but actually we're all just human beings at the end of it. Some people identify as heterosexual, while some people don't. Some people identify as cisgendered, while some people identify as trans, or non-binary. So I think the way we talk, the language, everything kind of needs to be inclusive, and some of little bit of what we're going to learn about today. But before that, it's important to understand what are the kinds of issues that people who identify as LGBTQ experience. So, for example, we will firstly talk about what is the kind of oppression that we live in. So, India may, for example, what we experience over here is a lot of patriarchy and a lot of people who are heteronormative. Now, what does patriarchy mean? Um, when we talk about patriarchy, we are living in a world where there's a lot of discrimination towards women in the country. It's very, very common. We know this is something that actually starts at home. When we talk about heteronormative, okay, so I've written this word heteronormative over here. Heteronormative का मतलब ये है कि everything that we're doing or saying is from an assumption that a man is attracted to a woman, right? So that is why it is heteronormative. Heterosexual is the only norm over here that we consider. We forget that a person in front of you could probably be lesbian, gay, bisexual, could probably not, identify as a cisgender person, but could identify as a trans person. And for example, in educational institutions in schools, we will notice students talking about crushes. For example, they'll talk about opposite gender crushes, and in this situation, what happens to people who are actually queer, right? They don't find a space to kind of talk about their sexuality. Similarly, if there's a trans person actually in the college, and you don't have gender neutral washrooms, right? Now, this is a very legit concern. It might come across as a very small thing, but for a person who is non-binary or trans, for them, this entire fact that there are no gender neutral washrooms, where do I go? Because people around me are not going to be comfortable. What is it that I do? Then we have different kinds of bullying, discrimination, violence that starts at home, then it takes place at educational institutions, it happens at workspaces as well. Some things I think that is important for educators on this session right now, or people from the ICC to keep in mind, is that some of the hotspots where you notice these things happening are corners of the college, bathrooms of the college. Like, I have so many clients who have spoken to me about different kinds of bullying and violence that takes place because people are phobic, people are homophobic, people are biphobic, queerphobic, transphobic. And what does it mean? What does phobia mean? Like, we say we should not tolerate any kind of homophobia, biphobia, queerphobia. What does it mean? Phobia basically means that you have a sense of disgust towards people who identify as queer. So you feel that it's not okay for people to be queer, and it's not why would someone be like? There are so many things that are thrown at you. It's against the nature. It's not normal. It's abnormal. It's not natural. There are so many things we keep hearing, and then you will have this disgust towards queer individuals, and that is shown. It's shown through bullying, it's shown through discrimination, it's shown through how if there are students who are homophobic, and if there's one probably gay person in the classroom, you will absolutely abandon this person. You will not make this person sit and be a part of groups. You will make sure that they are eating their lunch on their own. And there are so many different experiences that I have seen in my counseling and therapy sessions. And we have come a long way, for sure. We have come a long way. So I think what the principal was saying earlier was this verdict that was passed on September 2018. So in September 2018, we had something called as the Section 377, which earlier would criminalize people who identify as queer. So it would criminalize people who identify as queer. The only difference right now is that now it has been decriminalized, but we still are a long way because till September 2018, so I forgot to mention that I also identify as a queer individual myself. So giving you my personal example, till September 2018, I was considered a criminal in this country for the fact that I love people who are, I just don't love men, I love women as well. So because of that one particular reason, I was considered a criminal in the country. Now after that, after the September 2018 verdict, where they decriminalized Section 377, I'm not considered a criminal anymore. But the biggest issue here is that LGBTQ or LGBTQ rights have not been legalized in a country like India. That means that I don't get any legal benefits. I'm not allowed to marry somebody who's probably a woman. If I'm working in a very nice multinational company, I am not allowed to use benefits because I cannot get married, hence I have no partner benefits. These are just some examples into the real world. If there are trans people who want to go to school and college, but if schools and colleges are not affirmative or not inclusive towards trans people, you will notice that they are actually dropping out. They're dropping out of school and college because it's actually not a very welcoming school. Now, the last point over here is a little triggering because these are things that have been happening in the country till date. So conversion therapy is something that a lot of healthcare professionals are practicing, where they say that, okay, you're gay, let me convert you. I will convert you. Now there's homeopathy, there's Ayurveda, there are actually mental health professionals like me, unfortunately, who actually say that, okay, we will convert you. Till in 2014 or 15, there was a hospital that said that they will provide electroconvulsive therapy, so ECT. So if there are any psychologists on this call right now, they would know what ECT is. So it's basically shock therapy. This hospital in Mumbai said that we will provide shock to this person because they and that particular person's family came in saying that, oh, my son, my son is gay. Just giving an example, my son is gay. So the hospital says, okay, we will provide shock therapy to this person. And unfortunately, this is still happening till date. In fact, the most recent case is there was a young 21-year-old from Kerala who had come out to her family about her sexual orientation, and her family was not at all accepting, and they started she was going through conversion therapy. She was sedated with medication she had no idea about. She would stay sedated for hours and days, till one point where she actually died of suicide because she couldn't take it anymore. So these articles, it's all on the newspaper. You can read about the Anjana case. That's when you'll know that these things are real, and it's absolutely happening in cities like even Bombay. There are so many practitioners, unfortunately, in Bombay that also still do this. So it's important for us as an institution, to first understand the role of the society, or our roles that we play over here when we're trying to talk about, when we're trying to talk about being inclusive towards LGBTQ individuals in India. And once we know that there is a society that's absolutely not accepting, there's so much of discrimination, there are going to be mental health concerns. There are going to be mental health concerns because of how oppressive the society has been, because of the kind of bullying, because of the kind of discrimination that queer individuals have had to face. And to give you like a journey into what I have seen since 2014, and what is really happening in the country. So I've been a practicing therapist since 2014, and one thing that I notice that has been happening very often is that the rates of depression and anxiety is really high in people who identify as queer, for the reason that there is no acceptance, there are family issues, there is oppression, there is discrimination, there is phobia. And when I say depression and anxiety, these are very common words, and we've also started using it we just very loosely use these words like depression and anxiety. But I'm really talking about mental health conditions here. Like, I'm talking about an anxiety disorder, I'm talking about clinical depression. The second thing over here, which is very important, is dysphoria. So I think if we saw the Abish Matthew video that I shared with you earlier, dysphoria is basically the opposite of euphoria. It's when trans people or non-binary people, do not, and their gender identity does not align with their sex, and they are not comfortable with who they see themselves in the mirror, right? So if you're talking about students, especially students who are studying, who don't have the money to go ahead and get the gender affirming surgery done for themselves, when they look at themselves in the mirror, they just feel like, no, this is not me, and that creates a lot of issues. It creates issues in studies, it creates issues in relationships with people, it creates issues in families, and family acceptance is a large issue in a country like India. Like, most families, unfortunately, do not accept their child's identity, whether it is sexual orientation, gender identity. And that leads to a lot of negative self-image. So when I'm saying negative self-image, you start looking at yourself as a reject. You just feel like, okay, no, there is really nothing over here that is good in me, because everybody around me has actually rejected me. They have not accepted me for who I am. And hence, I then start having a negative self-image. I start looking at myself as somebody who is wrong, major self-worth issues. Like, I've seen so many clients who had self-worth issues, who had self-esteem issues. A lot of people also experience internalized homophobia. Internalized homophobia is basically a condition or a situation when you start, you are not okay with gay as an identity. Something is blinking here, so I'm quickly going to check what it is. Kindly send feedback. Okay. All right. So, internalized homophobia is when, if I identify as a gay person and I'm not okay with this identity, like, I think this is wrong, this is against nature, and then I find I actually start feeling disgust towards my own self, because I wish I was straight. Like, life would have been so much easier if I was just heterosexual and straight. And so many people, are telling me things like, it's a choice, you choose this. That's the biggest myth that's ever considered, is that being gay is actually a choice, or being trans or, non-binary is a choice. If it was a choice, you would never want to choose a life like this with so much of struggle, with so much of discrimination around you. So I think when we make these statements like, it's your choice and I respect your choice, it's not a choice. Nobody has chosen, something like this for them. Another important thing is to also understand the number of suicide rates in India, especially amongst queer people. Wow, how did that happen? Yeah. Which, unfortunately, especially right now, because this is a media-focused college, or, I know there is, last year with the BMM students, this is what I was discussing, is that LGBTQ related issues are rarely actually covered in the news and media. Okay, that's actually rarely covered. So you will talk about the statistics in India with regards to suicide. You will find research, you will find stats, but when you want to talk about statistics of LGBTQ individuals dying of suicide, you will find nothing, because there is very little actually covered by the by journalists, and that's a little problematic, and that is something that I consider as a red flag, and I feel that is why a session like this is so important with students of journalism as well, because I think that we need to start noticing कि जब LGBT related news आता है तो क्या आता है, and how are they actually portrayed. Like, I am a very regular person standing or sitting right now virtually in front of you, and I don't see myself as any different as any of you right now. But somehow, when people are talking about, people like me who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, there is a lot of stigma attached. There is a lot of us versus them, these people and them. But I just feel like we're all we, right? We're all WEV over here. We're all human beings, so it doesn't really matter what my sexual orientation or gender identity should be. So this is in short a little bit on the mental health concerns. Okay, so I'm going to take a break right now and check if there are any clarifications or questions till now, whatever we've covered. So we've spoken a little bit about concerns from a society point of view, and we have also spoken about mental health concerns. So are there any questions till now? Or just anything that anybody would like to reflect, anybody would like to share something? What are the problems faced by the LGBTQ communities in the pandemic? Thank you, Kevin. That's a very, very nice. Sorry, I think that was a private message. I didn't realize. Sorry. So yes, somebody has asked this question, and I'm going to take it. So right now, since March 2020, we have all moved indoors because right now we've realized that there's something called as coronavirus and COVID-19 that has absolutely taken over the world, and that has forced us to stay indoors. So my practice has also shifted indoors completely. So I have been providing teleconsults, I have been providing virtual therapy and counseling since March continuously, and it has been very hectic, to be honest, because right now for people who identify as LGBTQ are the most vulnerable, because you have to live in families that are actually very, very phobic. And so just I'll give you one or two case examples also to talk about my clients right now. One is that just imagine if you're queer, okay, if you're queer and you live in a family that is very homophobic, they're not okay about your identity, that leads to a lot of abuse. There is, I think we know this from the newspapers that the number of domestic cases and the domestic violence cases in India have increased. Again, we don't know, we're not talking about the number of cases with regards to LGBTQ individuals. We're talking about domestic violence, but gender-based violence in the world has increased right now, including people who identify as LGBTQ. I have clients who have to go to the terrace to talk to me, who have to go inside the bathroom to talk to me because they don't have the space to talk to me. And especially people who live in Mumbai, we know that the homes over here are anyway they're not really huge spaces where we can have our own space, and it's very, very difficult. So there are people who have been facing physical abuse, there are people who are facing emotional abuse, there are people who have been constantly been told on a daily basis, use this time to get normal again, use this time to become better. Let's start looking for people so that we can start talking about your marriage. So there's a lot of marriage pressure as well. These are the different things that are actually happening in the country right now with regards to queer people during the pandemic. Okay, so I'm going to see. Okay, there is, okay, so somebody says, so when we talk about a trans woman, they're essentially men who have transitioned to women. Okay, so I'm going to take this one later because it's more about identity. So I'll reach out to this person individually. I'm going to move on right now. Now comes the most interesting part where we need to talk about what can SM Shetty as an educational institution do, right? So I think when we talk about allyship and support, the most important things that are important, it is important to stand up against phobia. Now, I remember, I think the vice president, vice president, we had the vice principal who said that we should stand up against phobia and not tolerate something like this happening either in classrooms, staff rooms, playgrounds. We should stand up against it. But in real life, what does it mean to stand up against homophobia? I'll give you a very classic example. We are all a part of different WhatsApp groups, and these WhatsApp groups have a lot of jokes that get circulated. A lot of in nature, like there are a lot of gay jokes if you have noticed. Because I am this very angry feminist advocate, activist, so you don't call me whatever you want. I call out people on these WhatsApp groups saying that I don't think these jokes are okay. Like, I don't think these jokes are okay. And that is one way of actually standing up against phobia, because you're trying to say that you cannot make my identity a joke, right? So when there are jokes being passed on WhatsApp groups about identities, you're kind of making identities a joke. Similarly, in a staff room, and this is again coming from personal experience, if you notice another teacher or another professor or an HOD or any educator who's talking about somebody in their classroom who's a little effeminate, but if you're talking about a man who is a little feminine in their gender expression, again that's a form of phobia, because you're trying to say that men should actually be men, and there is nothing feminine that we can accept about it. And I will say this outright, because I think that things that happen in the staff room also need to be accounted for. If you want to be an LGBTQ affirming person, you need to call out such behavior, whether it is happening in a student classroom, whether it is happening in a staff room. We all need to find different ways to kind of stand up against homophobia. Next thing is to help create safe spaces. So this is something that I have been doing on Instagram of late. On Instagram, I've started something called as a Safe Space series, where every Saturday 6 p.m. I go live with one person, and we talk about how we can create safe spaces in a country like India, whether it's at home, whether it's at workspaces, whether it's at educational institutions, and what does it mean to create a safe space. Like, for example, us doing this talk right now is a way to create safe spaces, because we're talking about something very important. We're talking about people and identities that are very much part of this educational institution, regardless of whether people are coming out or not, right? So regardless of whether people are talking about their identities, does not mean that there are no queer people in this college. And this is something that a lot of people usually tell me, पर किसी ने बोला नहीं है कि वो gay है, या किसी ने बोला नहीं कि वो lesbian है, or we don't have a trans person in the college. I think it's important to then question कि if there are people, they're probably not coming out because they fear that they'll be thrown out of college. They'll fear that people are going to make fun of them. There are so many reasons why people find it really difficult to come out of the closet. Third is to read up. When I say read up, I think there is ample of information online about sexuality, about gender, about there's so many different things. All we can do is just take some efforts from our side and read up. And the last thing, which I would very importantly say over here, is that when you have learned something, okay, it could be anything. It could be a small thing. It could be a big thing. Don't keep that learning only to yourself. Go and share it further. Go and talk to 5 other people about what you learned today. Right now with students, I say this to all students when I'm doing training, social media is your tool. You're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, there are so many different, you're on Twitter. Use that medium to talk about identities. Use that medium to talk about LGBTQ. Now, this is going to be the last bit of my session before we open to kind of question and answers. How can a campus be LGBTQ inclusive? So these are things that I would consider everybody on this call right now, and I love the participation. I should really acknowledge it. Like, we are at 178 participants right now. That's amazing. For me, in my head, I'm just like 178 people will now take an effort to understand more about LGBTQ is a win-win situation for me. I think this is also, I think, something that the vice principal has said. So when they spoke about the harassment and anti-bullying policy. So I think it's important to recheck policies from a gender and sexuality lens. When I say that, are we saying that when we are talking about, harassment policies, anti-bullying policies, inclusive policies, are we saying that this is inclusive of all gender identities and sexual orientation? So this is a very important line that actually needs to go into policy. So when we're saying that we are against bullying, we are against any form of harassment or discrimination at college campuses, irrespective of a couple of things. I would say sexuality, I would say gender, I would say caste, I would say religion, because these are the legit issues that are happening. Like when we talk about Islamophobia is real. Like I have so many Muslim clients who face discrimination on a daily basis as well, right? So I think when we're looking at our policies, and this would be for people from the ICC, this would be for the educators to pay attention to this point, that you need to look at it from a gender and sexuality lens as to how inclusive your policies are. Second, I think it's very important to kind of create an LGBTQ students group. Small, big, really doesn't matter, but to create an LGBTQ students group with the support of educators. I have written here with the support of educators because sometimes what happens is that students are ready to create groups, but the educators are not supportive enough. So I think it's a collaborative effort of students plus educators to be able to make these groups. There are so many groups like that. So for example, I do a lot of sessions with IIT Bombay. So IIT Bombay has a students group called LGBT students group called Sati. And more than happy to always connect you guys if you feel that this is something that you all want to explore. This is something that you all yeah. So this is the second point. And with LGBT student groups, you can have screenings, you can have sessions. These are the smaller steps to start making a campus a lot more inclusive. Third point, very important. I know that there are counselors and psychologists who are a part of SM Shetty. Campus counselors should be LGBTQ affirming. So now, unfortunately, I'll tell you where this is coming from. So I did my master's in clinical psychology from SMBT University, and unfortunately, as much as I've done my master's, our education or our curriculum had nothing on LGBT. Okay, it had nothing on LGBT. It is my practice. It has been my practice. It has been my reading. It has been my clients who have taught me how to be LGBTQ inclusive, how to be LGBTQ affirming. So that is why when we talk about campus counselors, and also actually because this is an initiative by the ICC, it's important that every person who's a part of the ICC also needs to be sensitized on LGBTQ related issues. Because when we're talking about the internal complaint committee, that also needs to come from a gender and sexuality lens, right? So campus counselors need to be LGBTQ affirming. There is one course in India right now that does, it's called the Queer Affirmative Counseling Practices by Mariwala Health Initiative. If this is not an area that you have worked in, it's always good to kind of get yourself equipped if you want to be an LGBT affirming therapist. Gender neutral washrooms for trans and non-binary students. Again, this is a conversation I have a lot with a lot of ICCs, a lot of colleges, a lot of workspaces. If you have the infrastructure, you create a gender neutral washroom. But if that is not possible, then you look at one of your existing washrooms and make them a gender neutral washroom. So you might have a men's washroom, you might have a women's washroom, but you want to have one washroom that is gender neutral so that anybody, whether it's a trans person, whether it's a non-binary person, does not have to worry about which washroom do I go into. This might again sound like something I don't know if we should do, not do, but it's important. It's important to consider something like this. Okay, all right. So this was short and sweet. I have kept my email address here. Feel free to take a screenshot or just write it down. I've also kept my Instagram page because I'd like everybody to follow the Safe Space series that I'm doing. You can absolutely follow me because I have a lot of conversations on mental health, on LGBTQ, on gender-related issues, and now I think we can open the forum to some more interactive discussion. So happy to take questions, happy to listen to people if they have something they'd like to share. And I'm going to stop my scripts here. Share.
We have few raised hands, ma'am.
Richa, if you could stop the sharing your
Yeah.
screen. And
I'm just doing that. Okay, so I have got a lot of questions personally, actually. I'm just going to take a while to read them. So somebody says, I would like to say that at first I never had any problem with anyone and I was welcome to all types of people. But 5 years ago, when I started traveling by train, I had a few untoward incidents with transgender, because of which I am now a bit worried towards them and try to stay away from them. In this case, what should I do? Okay, all right. So I think what we need to understand is, I mean, train, unfortunately, you have these incidents. I don't know if you mentioned train. Yes, you mentioned train. So we notice that these things happen in a train, regardless of whether it's a trans person, not a trans person, ladies compartment, men's compartment. I feel being a woman, for me, it's unsafe to. I feel very unsafe to travel in the general compartment because I feel like I'm always at risk, and I always have my bag in front of me because unfortunately that's just how the country is right now. But I think it's important to just understand if your issue is with trans people or with certain people who were who have done something wrong. So I think we need to separate between the two. Just because you had one trans person who inappropriately touched you doesn't mean that all trans people inappropriately touch. So I would kind of distinguish between the two. So there are a lot of personal messages. I think if Kalpana and Nina, you all can tell me how do I go about, because there are a lot of personal messages.
Personal messages may have come only to you, so we cannot read them
Right.
out.
And I understand that they're personal also, because they're. I don't think that people would like their identity to be revealed. I'll take a couple of these messages. Okay, is married?
Can we take one person? Sorry, Richard. One person who's been wanting, I think, for a long time with the raised hand. We can take that one, perhaps.
Yes.
Pradnya Kali Deshmukh, I think that's the name, if I've got it right, with a raised hand. Mithilesh sir, if you can ask that person. You can...
So, Pradnya, you can unmute yourself and ask it.
Hello?
Yes, you can ask it.
Hello?
Yes, we are
here. Hello, I'm Pradnya.
Hello.
Can you listen me, ma'am?
Yes.
Yes. In revised guidelines of NAC, every institution has asked to prepare gender sensitization action plan. So every institution has to prepare gender sensitization action plan for its institution. Can you guide how should one institution have this gender sensitization action plan?
I mean, I'm not sure what you're talking about actually. When you say that you have to have a gender sensitization action plan, have they mentioned what needs to be done?
They have not mentioned what, but I have gone through the gender sensitization action plan of various institutions across the world. So what facility the institution wanted to give for all genders. So I think your inputs will help higher education institution in this regard. So this is a policy document for all institutions.
Right.
So your inputs are welcoming, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So I think going back to a lot of what we spoke about earlier, those are things I think when we're looking at a gender sensitization and action plan. I mean, unfortunately, I don't have the document in front of me. If you could share it with me later, I'd be happy to also have a more informed conversation about this. But I think the way I personally understand this is that I think we need to look at again more inclusive spaces the way we're kind of taking this conversation forward right now. So a lot from what I covered in the presentation today, if we can start at least from there, if we can use those spaces then to recheck our policies, to recheck of how inclusive are we being towards trans people, towards queer individuals, to start a simple situation like when I introduced myself, I mentioned my pronouns. I always do that. Like it's become a mandatory thing right now. I will say Richa Vashish, she, her. I do that because I'm trying to create safe spaces for people whose gender identity might not come by the looks of it. Like I look like a woman and I identify as a woman, but that's me. There are a lot of people who might not identify as women, but you would look at them and you just assume the gender identity, right? So I think this entire concept of asking pronouns, sharing pronouns, um, is very important, and it comes off very differently. Like if you notice my Zoom name over here, my Zoom name right next to it also has my pronouns written. A small step that we all can do is that because we use Zoom as a platform, we can all change. So I think the option over here is basically to the right, you lose three dots, and over there you can rename. So you can write your name and you can actually write your pronouns, because you're doing this because you don't want people to assume what your gender identity is, what pronouns you go by, and also for trans people and non-binary people who might otherwise find it very uncomfortable to talk about their identity, right? So these are small ways. Of course, this is a longer and a larger discussion that I'm more than happy to speak to you about. You can reach out to me. You have my email address. Is there anybody else who has raised their hand?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
No more raised hands.
Okay, so I'm just going to look at how many questions would you like me to take?
We have some time. You can maybe if you need we can run a poll if you wish, and you can have a look at the questions in the meantime. See if you can
Right.
club those.
Yes.
Right, you can
That's
do
good.
that.
Yes.
Sir, can we have a poll for all the participants, please?
So you all can just fill the polls. Meanwhile, I will look at all the questions and see if I can club them and answer them.
All participants now can step in.
Okay. So there are a couple of questions on coming out. Okay, so I'm just going to address them. So some questions around them coming out to people, them coming out to family, some questions around supporting people who want to come out of the closet. So just to give you a background, coming out of the closet would mean that it's a concept that came across because if I don't tell you that I'm a queer person, or I identify, or I like women, for example, you're going to assume that I have a boyfriend or I like men, and after a certain age, that I'm probably married and I have kids. And that I'm not kidding. That's very very common. We usually assume that, and I have a lot of old college friends who are not in touch with, who would randomly message me on Facebook and be like, "Oh, so do you have kids and children now?" That's just the stereotype of how certain people are looked. And I think coming out as a process, for me, started in 2015 when I decided to talk about my identity. And right now, I'm an out and proud person. I probably come out very often, almost every day. This is me coming out to around 170, 180 of you right now while we talk. And coming out as a process happens every day. So a couple of questions around it: if somebody wants to come out, how can you support them? If you noticed the video that the Abish Matthew video that we noticed a while back, I think if we don't understand anything, so for example, there are a lot of questions on binaries, there are a lot of questions on pronouns, there are a lot of questions on sexuality. It's a lot to understand, but the least we can do is respect. So if somebody is coming and telling you that, okay, I don't think I don't think that I'm a cisgendered person, or I don't think that I'm heterosexual, even if you don't get it, like you're just wondering what is this person saying, and why are they saying something like this, the least we can do is respect it. The least we can do is just accept that this person's thinking, identity, feelings, expressions are not like me, but that does not make them abnormal. That does not make them any less normal than either of us, right? So, this entire discourse where we say that we want to talk about these people, we want to talk about them, we want to talk about these LGBTQ individuals, we need to stop saying that, and we just want to start saying we will talk about LGBTQ, for example, as a topic and concept, but you don't want to sideline or push people away. You want to say that we're all equals over here, and we're all, we're all part of the same world or country right now. Okay, so one poll is launched and the answers are great. So I had asked the question, what should I do if someone tells me about the gender identity and or sexual orientation? So 10% people say we should tell peers, 6% people say we should tell the staff, and 84% people say we should keep it to ourselves. And that's a very important thing, considering that we're talking about coming out as a concept right now. If I come out to you, okay, just to you in person, if I come out to you in person right now, it does not really give you the authority, or it does not give you the right to go and talk about it to other people, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a peer, whether it's a family member. It does not allow you to do so. When you need to understand that if I'm coming out to you and telling you about my gender identity or my sexual orientation, I'm saying it in confidence, and you need to keep it in confidence. So always remember that these are things you need to keep to yourself. And the best question that you can ask somebody is, okay, can you let me know how I can support you? What is the support that you're looking for from my side? Like, for example, one person over here asked that if somebody is talking to us about coming out to their family, but they're scared, what should we do? How can we help them? You can ask them to speak to a therapist. You can ask them to speak to professionals who have been working in this field, who would be able to help them, because for example, me as a therapist, I have spoken to a lot of families, I've spoken to a lot of parents. There are some wonderful tools. In fact, some people have asked what are the different websites, books that people can go through. So there's a nice video that I didn't play today because it's a very long video. It's which you should totally check out. It's on YouTube. It's Satyameva Jayate. We all know this particular series. Aamir Khan ka hai. Satyameva Jayate season 3 episode 3. It's on sexual orientation. It's on gender identities, and it's interesting because it has a lot of Indian families in it. It has this dadi talking about her gay grandson and saying, I support my gay grandson. And when you show something like this to parents, they feel it's a lot more real, because like imagine like a dadi's on screen and like saying, I accept my great grandson. What more do you want in terms of acceptance? The second question, I think a few more questions were around the legalities. So someone asked if marrying LGBTQ is legal in India. No, it is not legal in India. Marriage is not recognized. So as of now, only heterosexual marriages are recognized. So if I have a partner actually, so I have a partner. We've been together for almost 2 years. She's a woman. I cannot get married to her, and I need to be very careful if the two of us move in together. I cannot let I don't know what the landlord would risk, if I want to like move in with her and stay with her. I don't know what the landlord would say if we'll even get a house. In fact, that is something that a lot of trans people face on a very, very regular basis. Them finding housing, them finding jobs, them being able to continue or complete their education without, going through any kind of. I think somebody else has also raised their hand. Mansi has raised their hand. Do you want to go ahead and speak?
Mansi, you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
I wanted to ask that what kind of human right violations are LGBT people exposed to?
What kind of?
Human rights abuses. Is that what you wanted to ask?
Yes.
What kind of human rights abuses does the LGBTQ community face? Is there anything specific on that?
Right. I mean, yes, I think that is what the major fight within the LGBTQ movement is, that basic human rights itself are, we don't have those basic human rights. So you mentioned any human right, like just give me one example and I'll be like, okay, this is actually not happening in the country, or it's not happening in like larger parts of the world as well. Yeah, so there are many such human rights violations that happen. In fact, I think somebody had asked a similar question. Okay, anyway, yeah, I think I may have missed it. I cannot find it right now. In fact, there's a question over here. As of now, intersex and asexual has come under queer umbrella, and there are still people discovering their identities. How do you help people find it? So this is something I think is very important as educators, as people who are part of the ICC or people who are counselors at SN to remember, is that if somebody talks to you about their identity, it is not anybody's place to let people know who they are or what their identity is. It's very important that just because we learned some terms today does not mean we can let people know, okay, I think you're non-binary, or I think that you're trans, or I think that you're gay. The right is always to self-identify. It's very important to understand that self-identification is very important, and if we're talking from a human rights and also from a legal rights point of view, there is something called as the Trans Act right now. I don't know if a lot of us are aware of the Trans Act right now. What it says is that there's something called as the Transgender Rights Act, and it says that if you want to identify as a trans person, you need to prove it. That itself is a major violation, is a major issue, is a major red flag over there, because you have to actually prove that this is what your identity is, and self-identification as a concept does not exist there. And unfortunately, it's not a bill, it's an act right now. So the list of violations and the list of issues in the country from a legal perspective, from a human rights perspective, is really long. And there are people within the movement who are actually fighting, who are constantly at it. And what we can do as individuals who are a part of this session right now is just go read up a little bit about the Trans Rights Act in India. Read up and understand more and speak about it. Probably get a lawyer. I think there are 2 lawyers who are a part of this call right now also. Have lawyers to have a session with you on the Trans Rights Act, how it is wrong, how it is so violating for trans people, because you have to you have to sit in front of a panel of professionals. I think there's a doctor, there's supposed to be a psychologist, and you have to prove that you're trans to actually get a trans benefit after that. So yeah, there are a lot of issues. I won't take more time. We are at 1:24 right now. If Kalpana and Nina can let me know how do you want to proceed.
There are no raised hands, but if you have the time, there were a couple of questions that our students had asked. If I may take a few of them, if that's all right with you and time, just a
right.
couple of them. So there is this one question that says, what should be shown on TV? Or generally, I think the question is about what should be shown on media. Is there anything that is correct or incorrect when it comes to the LGBTQ community?
Right.
What or how should?
Yeah. So I think if we have looked at the current media right now, okay, whether it is print media, whether it is visuals, what we see online, whether it's whether it's Bollywood, everything has been sensationalized. Everything has been stereotypically shown. So when we try to show a LGBTQ individual, we end up showing a gay man who's very effeminate. When we are trying to, like, I mean, there are so many examples of that in your television that you can see, or in media. I think if we can just normalize that there are different kinds of people. So no one person can actually be the face of the LGBTQ community, right? So I mean, I'm here. Again, unfortunately, I couldn't keep my hair short. I usually keep my hair really short. The pandemic doesn't allow me to do so right now, but I don't think that I am any different. Like, I am a therapist, I work with companies, I have friends, I have a family. I am no different, right? But if I have to play a role in a film or in ads, the way they would show a queer person. I think that's what needs to change. Similarly, this is something that I've done with the students last year as well. Just the do's and don'ts in reporting, the kind of language that we use when we are writing about LGBTQ issues. When we're trying to talk about, for example, like this was one of the clippings that I shared, that if you want to say that this person committed murder, or like this person committed a crime, unfortunately, if this person's identity is revealed, like if you know this is a gay person, you will say gay person ne andheri mein murder kiya, like, you know, something in those lines. I don't know why is it that the identity of this person needs to be revealed when we're talking about a crime, which is murder. Why can't we just separate the two, saying that identity has nothing to do with the fact that they've actually committed crime? Like when we say आदमी ने मर्डर किया, did we say heterosexual आदमी ने मर्डर किया, या did we say इसने रेप किया? Like there are so many such news every day, but when it is a gay or a trans or a non-binary or a lesbian, जब ऐसे news आने हैं, then we notice that the media will highlight the identity part of it, only to attract more attention, only to sensationalize it a little more. And for me, that is bad reporting. Right? So I think it's important कि हम ये switch कैसे लाते हैं. So when we're trying to, even at educational institutions, for example, when we have the men's and women's washroom, ठीक है, small example, women washroom का अगर हमें एक picture दिखाना है, we will show a lady with long hair, or we will show a lady with a particular figure while a man has short hair with a particular figure. Why? Why is it that we cannot just normalize the fact that women can also have short hair, men can have long hair? Like, this entire concept of gender is so structured, is so boxed and rigid, that men need to be a certain way, women need to be a certain way. If they are gay, they need to be effeminate, nahi to they are not gay enough. Like, so many gay people have usually been told, like, if I didn't talk about my identity, I will have people telling me, oh, but you don't look lesbian enough, or you don't look queer enough. Why do I need to yell and like wear rainbows to actually talk about my identity? That's not the case here. Yes, I think I went overboard with that answer, but any more questions, Nina?
there was one question. I'm not revealing the name because it was sent privately. I meant for you. It says, if I am bisexual, what is my pronoun? How to make myself comfortable with boys and girls both?
Right. I think, yeah, I have seen this message myself. So if I am bisexual, my pronouns have nothing to play a role here, because I think this is going to be another session which I'd be more than happy to take to understand what is the difference between sex, gender, sexualities, what are the different sexual orientations, what are the different gender identities, because bisexual is a sexual orientation, which means that I'm attracted to more than two genders, right? Pronouns is gender identity. Matlab, I am a woman, I identify as a woman, hence my pronouns are she and her. So if I'm bisexual, it does not, my pronouns could be anything. It could be he and him, it could be she and her, it could be they and them, it could be literally anything.
There is one question that says, if heterosexuals want to know more about the LGBTQ community, how should we ask questions to them without offending them?
Right. So I think that's a nice question, and I think if we can be respectful and mindful. So, for example, this is something that I have learned with time. But if I tell people that I'm attracted to women, okay, unfortunately, sometimes with friends also, I would have people asking me really uncomfortable questions like, so how do you all, what do you all do in closed doors, or who is the man in the relationship? And I think it's very important to be mindful of the kind of questions that are actually asking for people. A lot of information you can get online. If you're genuinely concerned about the well-being of this person you're inquiring or you want to know more about, I think to be respectful is very important. To be mindful is very important. Like these two words, I will repeat it again and again. How we are questioning. So if I want to know, so if somebody is coming out to me and saying that, hey, I think I'm gay, the way I would respond is, first I will let them know, I will tell them, thank you for trusting me, thank you for letting me know, because I know that it's very difficult in a country like India to talk about your identity. If there's any support that you would like from me, please let me know. I would, I'd really like to support you, or, just listen to anything that you'd like to share. Sometimes we are out to give advice to people, but all people are expecting from us is just listen to them. So even if we can just lend our ear and listen to what people are saying, we can be better individuals.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, see, we had 177, we had more than, I think, 180 participants.
Right.
And there's only one person who's actually comfortable and talking about it.
Right.
So, what can we do so that students can be comfortable and, I don't know, maybe talk about it? Because
I think
if now you've got, questions on the exclusively to you, so how do we make it comfortable?
Right. And I think that's a very good question, Kalpana. I think if we can start using, so I say this to a lot of educators, I say this to teachers, to principals when I'm doing trainings with them, is that if you can be an advocate for queer rights, if you can be an advocate in your classroom, when you're talking, whatever you're teaching, whether you're teaching English literature, whether you're teaching journalism, whether you're teaching criminology, whatever, if you feel somewhere you can bring in gender or bring in sexuality in your conversation, you're making a statement right over there. And that's what I do. My profession is that I'm a clinical psychologist. I focus on mental health. But whenever I get an opportunity to talk about my queer identity or just to talk about queer rights in India, I do that. Because I think if I don't do it, I don't know who will. And it's only because I will bring up that conversation, I have then DMs coming to me on Instagram, or I get a lot of messages because I just put it out there. I just let people know that, okay, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about queer rights and identities. That's one way of doing it. Second is to call out any form of homophobia when you notice it's happening around you. And you don't want to shame people. Okay, you don't want to shame people by saying ki ye galat hai, but if you can just have a very mature adult conversation with people by saying that, okay, let's talk about what made you feel like this was okay or this is something you could do, right? So these are different ways. I would say is to be an advocate. for LGBTQ rights in your classroom. Like that's the best way to start doing it. Even I don't know if you have sexuality, or I think gender as a subject is usually there in politics, but sexuality usually isn't. So even if you can loop in sexuality, because I feel gender and sexuality are so connected to each other, like one is not, like they coexist, right? So if these conversations can start happening in the classroom, then you're going to be that progressive teacher that everybody would want to come and talk to you. Right? The other thing is just small posters around the campus that can just talk about LGBT inclusivity, that can just talk about what's okay, what's not okay. There is Wilson College. I once gone to Wilson College. They had a sari day where men were wearing saris, and so they have the sari and tie day. I know you all have like a lot of days that make these days a lot more gender neutral, where you don't only have women coming in saris, but if there are men who want to wear saris and come to college, they absolutely can and should. Like Wilson College mein wo actually hua tha. There were men wearing saris and coming, there were women wearing shirts and ties. Like I think if we can start being a little more gender neutral in our approach, and not being कि क्योंकि आप मर्द हो आपको ये पहनना चाहिए, क्योंकि आप औरत हो आपको ये पहनना चाहिए. So these are different ways of how you can start doing things in colleges, where then it's easier for people to start talking more about identities. Again, you can have LGBTQ film screenings where, as a part of your curriculum or class, you can have some film and then have a discussion around it where, more people can speak. So there are different ways, I think, that can happen.
I guess that's it. I mean, you perhaps have more questions than we do in our chat box, and quite a few of them have been answered. So, Lija ma'am, can we bring this to a close? Richa, is there anything else you'd like to say before we end the session?
No, I'm good. I would just say that if if there's anything that needs to be further addressed, you have my email address. You can absolutely reach out to me. Really, really excited. I'm so glad we could do this. I'm always excited to be a part of conversations with students in colleges around LGBTQ, because I feel like that was something that was not there when I was in college, for example, or when a lot of us were in college. I think it's very important, this conversation. Thanks a lot.
Richa, it was really good, and we need your help to make our campus as it is, make it as an ally. So we really need your help in the future once this pandemic gets over, and then when you open up. So we need your help for that, and be associate with us. That
Absolutely, I'd love to.
Thank you so much. I think Neena, we can.
Yes. If I can, since we've come to the end, it's my pleasure to extend a vote of thanks. Thank you, Richa Vashisht, for sparing the time, for so willingly to be on the show and being generous with your time. Thank you for that. I'm sure many questions have been answered. More importantly, that many questions have arisen in people's minds, which needs to be answered. That is more important, perhaps. I must thank our management for making sure that we have the infrastructure through which we can conduct these webinars. Big thank you to all the participants who have joined us, students, teachers from different parts of India. It is only your presence that makes us successful. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. Sridhara Shetty, for his support, our vice principal and IQAC coordinator, Dr. Liji Santosh, vice principal, Professor Sandesha Shetty, for always supporting us in our endeavors, BMM BAMSC coordinator, Professor Kalpana Rai Menon, IT coordinator, Dr. Tushar Sambhare, and Professor Mithilesh Chauhan for their help technically to get this session up running. All members of ICC, Smita Ravindranath, Advocate Hamid Khan, Professor Himani Shukla, for your help and support to get this going. Thank you, everyone. Stay home, stay safe. If you need to go out, stay safe. Thank you. Mithilesh, the feedback link is on. We can stay on for 5 more minutes for people to fill up the feedback link. Please make sure that you fill it up with the right email address. Your feedback form certificate will only be sent to that particular email ID. So we can stay on. The guests and participants who have filled the feedback form can leave.